Hey everybody, this is Perch. Well, it's the day that many YouTubers have been waiting for, anxiously, excited. I Am Not Starfire has finally hit the shelves. And, what do we think? Well, this is the kind of video that I always kind of hate doing because I'm going to irritate both large groups by saying this. On one end, the people who are very angry about this, there is some context here. It's not worth your outrage. It's just not worth it, bluntly. And on the other end, the people who just really want to praise this, period, and really hear nothing else, it's not that good. There's issues with it. So let's get into it a little bit. But the best place to start with this comic, this graphic novel here, is who is it for? Now, I mean, it bears obvious saying that this isn't for long-term comic fans. And I say that for a few reasons. By the way, it doesn't mean that long-term comic fans won't enjoy it. It just means it's not aimed at that audience. And it's clearly not aimed at that audience. They're not using the characters in the same way. Starfire is very different. There's a daughter in the mix that doesn't exist in continuity. I mean, all these elements mean it does not plug in to the Titans universe and that kind of mythology that have gone on for the last 40 years or so. So it's not for that group, clearly. It's also, and this is probably the most damning thing I will say about it, it is been done before, many times before, coming of age story. And the most kind of, the thing that hits me the most about this graphic novel is how it isn't original. It is a story you have probably seen before many times. If you boil it down, there's a popular, successful parent. There's a kid that doesn't fit in with their parent's world and is rebelling against the parent. Parent doesn't understand. Child is trying to find their own way. Shenanigans occur. The child learns that the parent actually cares for them more than they realized. And they kind of, happy ending, good things work out in the end, and people go on. Even the narration, which is told from the main character, Mandy, is stuff, I mean, you've seen it. If you've watched any number of kind of 80s kind of teen rom-coms or those things, I mean, it's that. For all the people who are going to be really angry about it or praising it as the best thing ever, it's not, we've seen it before. This isn't a terribly original comic. It just is what it, I mean, I don't know what better way to describe it other than if you read it, it will be very familiar to you because it is. I mean, the beats of kind of the romantic interest from Mandy to the friend who's snarky. I mean, it is a almost checklist of that type of genre done in a comic. In terms of so then who is it for? Well, it's billed as for a YA audience. Again, I think that if you're trying to sell it to YA school and other things, it's going to have an easier go of it than Nubia by a wide margin. It doesn't feature a school shooting, and that's good. But it does have the character saying shit and fuck at various times inside the comic, and there's aspects of this that are going to cause at least some schools to, they're going to squint a little bit at it. But the best way, as I was really trying to kind of go through this and digest, where is this aimed? If you were a fan of the Teen Titans or Go Teen Titans cartoon, this comic is like 20 years later of that cartoon. It is set in that universe to some extent, more that universe than the DC universe. The Titans a little bit more closely resemble that. Robin is now Nightwing. We briefly see him. But the characters and the way it is written and the way it comes across is really seems like it's springing more from the Teen Titans Go. So maybe if you love that cartoon and now you're 16, 18, this is a natural evolution of that cartoon to you. I mean, that's the best thing I can think of. Some people have made comments about the main character, Mandy, who is Starfire's daughter, being a self-insert for Mariko Tamaki. It's funny because as the comic is going on, it's like, well, she's really kind of more of just an overweight goth kind of teen, and she's wearing kind of, somewhat of a stereotypical thing. The artist is simultaneously, I think, really good at Yosh Inani. They're using colors well, they're using compositions well, but that you can't, and the shadowing is done, in a simplistic way nicely, but it's still, you do get these very gross renders. There's no better way to put it. And I can't help but notice that Mandy, the main character, her nose ring seems to come and go randomly. There's like one panel where she's got one and she's reaching for some cookies, and the next panel she's eating those cookies, and the nose ring is just gone. And it's like, I don't know. This happens throughout the comic where bits of clothing and jewelry and stuff just seemingly kind of disappear at different times. Combined with the fact that there is a heavy amount of repeat usage of backgrounds and things. And sometimes backgrounds are really just kind of, gradients and other stuff. So it goes along with the style of this, but there is a lot of repeat art that's happening throughout all this in this comic. But coloring, good. Characters are expressive, but often, like I mentioned, and I mean, they do a really effective job of making Mandy look just disturbing in various ways. You're supposed to kind of there's a couple panels here where it's showing like the pressure of school, and kind of the backdrop here is just the pressure of a kid who's the daughter of a main superhero and going through school and doesn't fit in and all the rest, and how this kind of tension builds up. And it's in that way, again, it's a more effective job than Nubia. It's just it's the same beats you've seen before, and it's just hard not to see this as troubling. The weight issues are interesting. You do see a lot of kind of side glances and frowns and everything from Starfire to the daughter, as a daughter pigs out on various things and just is, and in many cases, eating just constantly. The daughter has a crush on a popular girl at school who just so happens to be into her. Why is she into her? That's never really fully explained. But again, that's very much like an 80s movie trope where, the super popular kid goes out with a nerd because the super popular kid just does for some reason, and that's all fine. Mandy is interesting because they're trying to make her, grumpy and kind of, rebellious. But there's definite scenes here where Mandy is just unlikable as a character, just not pleasant at all. And so especially when she interacts with some of the kind of the rich preppy kids, and she comes across as more, it's you don't feel terrible sympathy for any of this. And the other dynamic of this that just doesn't quite meet the mark here is that you're supposed to feel the struggle of kind of this kid who can't live up to the parents maybe setting unrealistic expectations, except Starfire is pretty much bending over backward throughout the entire comic to relate and accept and help. Like the mom character, if we're supposed to feel more about this girl's struggle, it does make her feel a little bit more shallow and petty, as opposed to struggling with her various identities and things. And so when you get to kind of this romance that happens with the popular girl who actually does like her, you don't understand why that girl would like her. She's unpleasant as a character. But again, the summary is just, well, it's what I said. It's a comic that you've seen before. You've heard this story before. It's been done a lot before. I don't know what more can be really said about it. It's, again, what surprised me is how unoriginal it was, even down to this kind of ludicrous fight at the end between Blackfire and Starfire and Mandy suddenly gets her powers, and they have to do it on the football field while all the other high school friends of Mandy are watching. I mean, it's just every step of the way. It's not a very original story. So that's what would irk me the most if I was looking at this critically. Again, the self-insert part is funny because you're seeing it, okay, but then you get to the sequence toward the end where she's hanging out in a coffee shop and she's literally dressed in the same outfit, the exact same outfit that Tamaki has photographed herself with a little black hat and the overshirt. I mean, and the pants, it's kind of studs down the side of it. I mean, it's exactly a photo of Tamaki. So that is kind of like, okay, at some point there has to be something here. Like that has to be somewhat intentional. You can't not say it. But for me, structurally, it's not an original story. It's told fine in the sense that, because we've seen this story so many times before, it'd be hard to screw it up when you're just copying the same thing that other people have done. So it's like, if you like that kind of story, here it is with, art that kind of comes and goes, a lot of laziness in the backgrounds and other things, but uh, you know, who is it? Will it land with the audience? Well, it's doing okay on Amazon, but it's trending slightly lower than Nubia. Now, just for some pure number stats kind of conversation, Nubia was promoted. It started out high on the Amazon seller list, and then it plummeted very, very rapidly, which is normal. Not the plummeting part, but a lot of the new books do start out. They get the initial hype, they get the initial orders, the people who are into it, and that's kind of the bellwether of how high it rises. So Nubia actually hit in the 1 and 2 spot for DC graphic novels. I Am Not Starfire is not doing that. It's been hovering around 8. And so maybe that, maybe it's going to have longer legs, not like the main character. Sorry, that's probably a cheap shot. But it's, we'll see. In about 1 week, we'll have a much better sense of how well this is landing with the audience. But in theory, I think this book probably has more mass appeal than Nubia did because, again, there's no school shooting, so schools can order it. It's the artwork's a little bit more kind of colorful and inviting in terms of, something that's a light read for people who maybe not be into comics. Because it does hook off the Teen Titans Go cartoon, it probably has a little bit more of a built-in audience who know the characters. So I expect it to trend a little bit better than Nubia, but this thing is not going to be a major bestseller for all time. It won't. Is an affront to all of comics? No, it's easy to ignore. Again, the surprise for me, because I've been a broken record here, is how this story is a story you've seen before, like a lot. And that was, didn't expect that. So anyway, did you read it? Like I said, I'm just going to piss all the people who are expecting fiery rage. It's hard. I read this and I can't get fiery rage about it because it's, it is what it is. It's a product. It's just something that's going to sit out there. I don't know. It's if this was happening in the main DC continuity, if this was, they were going to launch a series off this, I might get more animated about it as being a bad direction for the character. But, it's a product aimed at an audience that, is definitely a casual comic fan. Is this going to bring a bunch of people into comics? Probably not. Yeah, that's about it that I have. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Like and subscribe, as always, and thanks for listening.